Well, welcome, folks. It is not Tuesday at 7. It is Friday the 13th at 7 o'clock. And if you have ever joined our creative conversations, you know we don't really follow the rules. And that's kind of, I think that's kind of the goal, right, is to creatively break the rules. But thank you for joining us. We know that we live in a world of division and highly contentious things. And what we try to do is come together. And what many of us have in common is maybe some artistic things, some creative, or that we want to root people across the starting line and through the journey, through their creative journey as well. But we have Stephen Banks here, and Stephen and I have known each other for quite some time. So this is going to be an interesting, dynamic conversation. And I know there's a bunch of people who are going to be watching and are going to have some questions live and recorded. But thank you for joining us today, Stephen.
Thank you so much. Love it.
We're going to be talking about a lot of things, but what we want to do is right off the bat, there is a share button, the very bottom left-hand side of your screen. I guarantee that this is going to be a dynamic one. But if you share this video, we know it. Next week, we're going to collect all the names of all the shares, and we're going to draw 2 winners. And if you win this book, we are going to mail it to you with the hope, that after you read it, you will pass it on to a loved one. Yeah. Or pass it on to somebody maybe not even love that much, but you pass it on to somebody else.
Maybe, you don't even like them, but they need to hear it for sure.
All right, so if you have ever joined a Tuesday at 7 interview, you know that what we hope is to help people tell their stories. And last week we gathered together with the pretentious Cleveland portrait artists. They gather together on Fridays, but they have celebrated 20 years of their gatherings. We were together with Tim Herron. Beth and I have gotten to know and love that group. And if you shared that video last week, your name is in this hat. And if your name is drawn, you're going to get what I believe is a bucket list item that you never knew was on your bucket list. You're going to sit for the pretentious Cleveland portrait artists, and artists from all over the world are going to draw your portrait. Really cool. And you will be blessed with some of the best artwork, I think that probably the world can provide. Right? All right. Stephen, you get to choose.
Oh, goodness.
One name.
I like this one. This one looks good.
Who's that winner?
This
is a biggie.
I've got
Raymond McNeese. Raymond, congratulations. Thank you for sharing. We are going to get your name on the sitter list. We hope that you choose to sit, but this is also one where you can gift that sitting position to maybe a loved one, a spouse, a child. But we are going to be in contact with you as to when you'll be sitting for the pretentious Cleveland portrait artist. But thank you, Tim, and thank you for everybody who shared last week. But this week, we're here to talk to Stephen Banks. And as I was doing some promotion, of course, we've been friends for quite some time, I showed some funny pictures. And I think that's why a lot of us find your leadership attractive, because you are not scared to have some fun. But I want to start off with, I believe that you taught me something. You taught me several things, but you've taught me that there's an art to trash talking. And I didn't know there was an art to trash talking until we went and played some basketball together. And I was like, you started chattering as we're going up and down the court. And I'm like, is this going to go well? So share with us a little bit about, and it's trash talking. We're talking basketball in our case, right? So in basketball, where did you learn, and how do you find that as a connector? Because I found out that by the time the night was over, it was going back and forth, and and there was connection through trash talking. Tell me about that.
I mean, one, we love sports, right? Yeah. And that's where one of our first connections. I mean, we're still, it doesn't matter how old we get, we still want to play. And so, I grew up in Kentucky. We played basketball all the time. Then I moved up here, and I'm trying to find places to play basketball. And in Cleveland, I found the best places to play basketball are usually I'm the only white one there.
Yeah.
And so, I'm already different, but trash talk becomes that kind of connection piece to people to let them know that you're not afraid, but also that you feel like you can bridge a gap. And so, when it comes to sports, right? I don't need them to know that I'm a pastor. They don't need to know that I'm this or that. We're just, 5, 10 guys on a court playing together. And during that time, it becomes a sacred space. It becomes its own place. And so in doing that, right, you're trying to bridge a gap. And so just like in communication, not all communication has to be so passive. And so, you open up that door, particularly when you are different, or now I'm old. Now I'm old and white and playing against younger guys who are not my same race. But when you're able to do that, you're able to just vocalize that. You're just trying to bridge a connection. But if you do it in such a way that you're not trying to, alienate somebody, right? And you're not trying to be like, it's not a prideful thing, but it becomes this kind of banter back and forth that athletes can share. And I think that's kind of the fun thing that you're able to do. And so then after I use the banter, after we talk, I'm a competitor, right? I'm just trying to get my competitive juices going. I want their best. I want them to know I'm giving my best. And then we're using the time. So it's not only the quantity of time, but it's the quality of time, the depth of the time. If I have the time, I want to use it, to be at my best. And so in doing that afterwards, then they start to ask questions like, where are you from? What do you do? And to find out I'm a pastor, is one of those things that just give me that quality of saying, hey, I just want to be real. I just want to be like, you can be fierce, you can be competitive. And at the end of the day, you can tap each other on the head. You can, give each other a handshake and a hug and say, great game. And I think that's that art form that we miss. We don't have a lot of that, kind of relationship, but so needed when you have people who are very different from one another.
Yeah. If you're watching this live, there is a comment button in the bottom, and my wife Beth is behind the camera. And so if you have a comment or if you have a question, feel free to put it right in the comment. But if you're watching the recorded session, we encourage you to put comments in there as well, because we can get back to those. Again, we want to encourage you to share. I didn't realize there was an art of trash talking. I witnessed it, and that is one of the things that I learned over time. And you are a fierce competitor. I mean, I learned that from basketball, but I've also noticed that training for the slide, that's a fierce competition too in your home, right? Yeah. Or tell us about the whole slide competition, because I see you sometimes.
Yeah. You're talking about the water slide?
On the water slides.
Yeah. So, it goes back. We've been taking family vacations to a place a little over 10 years ago, which connects kind of part of my story. My dad suddenly passed away a little over that time. And when he did, we said one of the things we wanted to do to honor my dad was to go on a family vacation. As often as we could, we need to get away, because work was only so important. So we go to this place, and it's a Hilton Grand Vacation. And each one that we go to down in Florida has a slide. And once during that week, there is this water slide competition. So for 10 years, I have been pushed by my kids to compete in this water slide. And every time I go up, I'm like, there's no chance. I don't have it. I got a bad back, a bad hip. Just getting older, younger people are there. But when they say go, then I just go, and I give it my all. And so I have yet to this day lost a water slide race at these competitions. And it's really funny because they give me sometimes a medal or the cheapest plastic, number one or champion kind of thing. But they also give me a drink credit, and I'm like, thanks, give the pastor the drink credit. Exactly. This is going to so there's been so many virgin pina coladas out there that it's unbelievable how many I've got. But it's great because now my kids are getting older. I've got Noah, who's 16, Jude, who's 14, and then my daughter, Olivia, who's 7. And so now they're old enough that they want to try to compete with me, and they are getting closer, but they still haven't beaten the man.
I think there's something to like a father saying, one day you'll beat me. Mm-hmm. And when that happens, you'll know that you have exceeded my water slide skills. But I mean, I think that we compete as hard, and we teach that spirit of competition to the people below us. We're here today because, and then we're gonna go around. We're gonna take a couple detours, but in addition to award-winning slide and trash talker, you have a book out.
Yeah.
Plot twist. Take us to the beginning. Meaning, this is that at what point did this begin? Was this something that was in the works? Have you been writing it for quite some time? Did you just go? It's tell us from origin to delivery.
So about no years ago, did I ever think I was going to write a book? Zero. Had no intention to do it. Let people who like to write. I'm a speaker, right? I talk to people. That's a gift. That's what I use. I like to go to camps and speak to teen groups still. I go to other churches and speak. I go to any place and just speak. It doesn't matter. Groups as small as 5 people up to groups 500, thousands, right? And it's been a lot of fun. So I had done a message series a year and a half ago, looking at stories in the Bible that I thought, there's no way this happened. There's no way that this story would have played out the way I thought it would play out. And I'm a movie buff, right? I like to watch good movies. And one of my favorite movies or favorite types of movies is when whoever wrote the movie takes the story in a direction that you would never expect. Because then I'm already thinking as the thing is going on, I'm thinking if I'm the writer, I'm taking it this direction. And I hate it when I find out what the plot twist was before it even happens. He didn't hide it very well. I think that God is a great author of stories, and the Bible has some unique stories in it that did not expect the story to go as you would think it. And so I started to think through what are stories that I'm like, man, there's no way that happened. There's no way it's possible. So you got Jonah and the fish, and everybody thinks he gets swallowed in this fish. That's not even possible. But the cool thing is the story doesn't end with this guy getting swallowed in the fish, but he gets spit out on a land of his enemy. And God says, I want you to speak this message. And if you speak this message, you're going to tell them you got 40 days or you're done. That's it. And he gives a terrible message, but God turns that around. And then you have Jonah sitting by this tree mad that these people have repented and changed their lives. And he's mad at it. And I'm like, what a great story. Because if we as good people, Christian good people, want to see people saved, healed, delivered, redeemed, whatever, and we get mad that God actually does that, I just think that mind blown type of thing, right? And so I just started working through these stories as messages and kind of building up towards Easter, where Jesus gives the greatest plot twist of all time, right? Because it's not just death, but it's about life. It's not about just don't do this, but what God can do in our lives. So I just thought about all of those things. And once I got done with the messages, right, usually I'm just on to the next thing. But for some reason, after a year, that plot twist identity was still in my heart. I think because most of my life was still the plot twist. It's still the plot twist that's coming. I grew up in a home that took me around church, but we weren't as dedicated as we should have been. I certainly didn't live a life where when I was a teenager, that I did whatever I wanted to do, right? And so for God to call me into ministry, that was something that I didn't expect. My dad's not a pastor. My grandparents weren't pastors. None of that. We come from junk, right? And so for me to have that just was such a unique thing in my life that I never thought that God would do that in me. And so that kind of led to me thinking through that this was still sitting on me. And actually, it was my wife, wonderful, love her. But she was like, Stephen, it's wintertime and you are bored to death. You need to do something with your time. Kids weren't in sports as much, right? I wasn't driving them around. I didn't have soccer. I coached that on the side. I do all these different things. And she's like, you are just bored and you got to do more than just watch TV at nights. And I needed something to do because I need my mind it's always going, right? And so at nights, while everybody was in bed, I started just to put some notes down. I had my old sermons. I started going through those, and I started just seeing what I had. It became more of those chapters, and I started to send it to a couple close people in my life who said, "Hey, I think I might have something here. Will you look at it?" And they said, "It's trash. It's terrible. Like, this is awful." And I said, "Oh, I was worried. I think it was awful." And they said, "We need more of your story in it." And so when I started to redo that after a few months of kind of rewriting it, rewrote it 12 times. And after 12 times, I didn't let my church know. They did not know I was writing a book. I had maybe a handful of people who knew I was writing a book because I didn't think the book was for anybody else. I really just thought it was for me. That God was just trying to tell me to write down my story. And it became something that was not only helpful in my life, but it became something that God allowed me to share with other people. And so that's kind of what happened to me or through me. And it wasn't until probably the week of Easter that I actually had the books printed and were able to give them away as a gift to the people in our church. And at that time, no one had known. And it was some special people in my life just really encouraged me. Keep going. You've got it in you. Find your voice. And did something that I really didn't think I could do. I didn't want to do it. I didn't think I would be very good at it. But to try to find your voice as an author just took a lot. But again, it was those late nights trying to use that to better myself, that maybe I was trying to flesh out the story that God had brought me through so that I could be reminded that God can give anybody a plot twist, because a plot twist is how God can turn the story around. And so when you look at some of the Bible characters in my own life, I started to see that God had helped turn that story around in me.
Turn that around as well. I'm going to hand you this first copy. I'm going to hand you this Sharpie and this piece here. So or maybe you can sign the inside. But I'm going to have you sign both of these.
Yeah,
I don't know if you want to use that as a... But if you guys, in the very bottom left-hand side of your screen, there's an arrow, and that's the share button. When you press that arrow, Facebook will guide you as to what to do next. You can share it to your friends list, and you might say, I have 2 or 3 specific people I want to share it to, or you could share it into another group. Facebook has a lot of groups out there as well. But when you share it, we know, and next week we're going to draw 2 names. And if your name is drawn, we're going to send this book to you. And what we are hopeful for is that you'll read this book. And that you'll pass it on to somebody who you think will benefit from that as well. And so 12 iterations, yeah. Right? And so when you create your first draft, was your first draft long? Was your first draft short? Like if I want to take it short. Yeah, super short. So you're like, okay, I'm just going to scroll stuff out. I'm just going to push it out there. And so what happened between first draft and second draft? I want to get in a little bit into the writing process. I want to talk a little bit about the process of taking it from here to a physical book, because I know that we have a lot of authors that they may not share our faith, but they may say, I want to put my thoughts in a book. So I want to talk a little bit about that. But then I want to get back to the story. And then if you guys hang with us to the very end, there's going to be not a plot twist by any means, but there's going to be a way that we're going to end this with something else that you do that your congregation, the folks that you spend time with, will appreciate. But there's going to be a little thing that we're going to end this up. So stick with us to the end. But it's okay. From first iteration, short. What was that? What was the next move to the second one?
So it helps when you're a public speaker, right? Doesn't matter what you do as a public speaker. The way that I speak is, and the way my brain works, is that I write down word for word everything I would like to say. So before I go up to speak, I usually have between 4 to 6, maybe even 8 pages of single spaced writing. If I were to, in a vacuum, be able to give this lecture, this message, this sermon, whatever it is, I want to write it down word for word. I'm trying to connect thought to thought. I'm trying to make sure that I have a good flow with everything. I'm trying to have my key points that are all connected together. My main text, all of those things. I'm asking those questions of myself. I'm trying to think through what my audience might be questioning as I do it. So it helps me because I'm already writing in a kind of chapter form as I go. So I have those 4 single spaced, pages that I'm doing, but I give that up when I'm speaking to connect with the audience. So I learned as a speaker that I would rather minimize down my proficiency of what I wanted to say. I'd lower that down from a 10 to an 8 to make sure that my connection went up to a 10. So I'd care more about connection than I do about content at that point. So when you're ever speaking to somebody or a place, you've got to connect with the people. So if you don't connect with people, it doesn't matter what you say. Yeah. And so you don't ever do it. I'm not doing it for a radio, right? I'm not doing it for a lecture for somebody to take notes. I want the connection piece. And so for me, it's really important that I'm already giving some of that. So when I speak, I'm saying things that I didn't think about writing down because I'm trying to guide the congregation, the audience, where I'm going. So I had to go back through when I started writing the book. I had the 4 pages of what I wanted to say. But what I found out is even when I put in the paragraph forms and I had put some other, different comments in, is that the people that I had sent it to had heard the messages and were like, you didn't say this. Like, I know it's kind of there, but it's not there. You're missing something. So I went back and had to watch the YouTube videos of all of my messages that I did to try to figure out what the heck did I do? I tried to download transcripts from YouTube using AI. I tried to download all of it to be like, what the heck? Like, what did I miss? But it was missing the stories. It was missing the connector pieces that when I saw people that were missing the point or, as you're speaking, sometimes you have an idea pop into your head that you have to simultaneously you're speaking and you're thinking, should I share this story here? Like you're trying to figure out, like, is this really a good idea to share? So when you're doing that, right, you're missing some of those things. And then, of course, sometimes that's the moment that people remember the most. But if you look down at my pages, it's not there. So that's what I was missing. So I went back through, looked at all of my transcripts, right, see what I was kind of missing. And that helped me to start. But I was missing when I'm speaking in a message, right, in a sermon, I'm doing it to make sure that God is the main character in the story, right? That's my job as a pastor. But when I'm writing a book, it's my book. It's not an addendum to the Bible, right? They didn't want to hear just about biblical characters. They wanted to hear about what I lived. And so my best comment from one of my editors was my favorite page and the favorite story in the whole book was your last page when you talked about how God used your story. And when they said they got through the whole thing of like 30 pages that I had done and said the best page was the last page, I said, I probably need to change that, right? You probably don't want to go through that many pages. So those 30 pages became 60 pages, which became 70, which became 80, which became, like a little over 90 pages, where I tried to really go through that process of just adding more of my story. But again, it's my story because I have so many stories. The church, Roger knows some of these stories from our time together. I couldn't put their stories in there or my story as a pastor in there of how I dealt with people because I didn't want to tell anybody I was writing a book. So literally I had to keep it like me, and again, that was more of like how God was using me, how God was working in me. But so many people then saw themselves in those stories because they had gone through some of those same processes with me during that season as well. And so that's kind of like the whole process. I was bored at night, right? Trying to take it from this manuscript to writing. But when I use a manuscript, I'm not using my voice. Yeah. So it took me a long time to find my voice and really hone that in. And I think that for any writer, right, they know to try to find your voice. So I already knew what my voice was speaking wise. It's just hard to figure out how to translate that into writing. So it took me a long time until I got the right thing where the people who knew me would say, that's my writing, right? That's me speaking, because I wanted them to hear my heart as if I was speaking to them in their room. And it's been such a benefit to people who they engage with our church online. They're not even with us on Sunday mornings, but when they requested a copy of the book and we got them a book, they could say, this is an extension of your voice, right? Like this is just another story. And for people who visit our church, right, we want them to know that whatever season they're going into, that we still believe, we still have hope, right? That God can turn that story around. And I believe that it's not just a God thing. I think it's a world thing. We need hope, right? We need that in our life. And so we wanted to be on the positive side of that. And so all of those stories represented in the book were my attempt to try to turn the darkness around in our world that we so greatly see, to say there's even hope when you think there's no way that anything can come better to this. That those are the plot twists that I think we need, that end on a high note versus, yep, this is all I'm ever going to be.
If you are not a winner next week, right? There's going to be two signed copies given away. If you're not a winner, there's going to be folks that are going to want to get a copy of this. What's the best way for them to get their own copy of Plot Twist?
Yeah, it's a great question. In a, again, a very humble way, I bought a limited amount of copies because I'm like, no one wants to read this. And now I have like 20 copies left, like it was like 200 something copies. We haven't publicized it at all. That's the funny thing. Like you saw it because a friend of mine shared when we were in Denver together for a conference. He said, hey, I got my copy. And then he's like, how did you hold out on us like that? But if you go to our website, it's Hope United Church, which is in Richmond Heights, Ohio. If you go to hopecleveland.com, you can go there and contact us. We have a special page where you can order the book. But if you just even go contact us, I'm interested in a book, then we can send you the details to be able to order that. And again, we love that people are doing it. And since we only have such a limited copies left, again, we're making it for at cost. Like we are literally just trying to say, because once that person pays for it, we're going to order some more and we're going to do the same thing so that you can just pass it on to a friend. And so again, this is so great that we are able to do this as an extension of ministry, right? Like it's not about making a bigger name for myself. It's just getting the word out. And if we can do that, right, we want to do that in a good way and a helpful way to other people.
Yeah. And is there a personal plot twist that we don't want to reveal too much, but give us maybe a little teaser here. What do you think?
I'll just kind of start off, so when I'm 16 years old, 15, 16 years old, my parents came home. It was actually from a high school soccer game. My dad drove me home. We had just lost a close game. I scored a goal. We were playing great. Like this is one of the top teams in the state. And we're thinking like, man, we're so close. That's how close we are. Yeah. And I remember driving home and I'm so pumped about the game. My dad wasn't often at a lot of my games because he was working. And so I was so happy that he was there. And I remember he tells me in the car, as I'm talking about the game, he just kind of like gets quiet and he goes, Stephen, your mom and I are getting a divorce. I probably should have known, but as a kid, you're just living life. You don't, you just, chaos or arguments are just part of what I grew up in. Like it just was what it was. Yeah. So from that moment, my mom ended up leaving. My dad was working all the time. Me and my younger sister, happy birthday, by the way, Stacy. It's her birthday today, Friday the 13th, but she can't pick it, right? At that point, when we kind of went without care from 16 to 18, I then made that my chance to be mad at everybody. Mad at the church, mad at God, certainly mad at my parents, and decided that if there was anything good in the world, I didn't want anything good about it. And so you try everything, try anything. You're trying to find that fulfillment that life is worth having, right? And it could have been very dark for me. And certainly there were seasons and times where that's possible, and I saw friends go through that as well. But from 16, 18, I wanted nothing to do with God, wanted nothing to do with church. Sometimes my mom would pick me up and we would go to church and I would still be there, but I would be sitting in the back row or mad that I was there. So I can be someplace, but not present, right? So by the time I was 18, right, I'm going to college, University of Louisville. I'm thinking I'm going to engineering. We didn't have a lot of money growing up, so I wanted to be financially stable. That's going to give me happiness, right? and had a scholarship to go there. And I go there and I'm like trying to go to different fraternities. I'm trying to be in the party scene. I'm trying to do everything, anything that would just create joy, right, in me, and get nothing. It's October 30th, and there is a youth group activity going on. I hadn't been back to church since that time, and my friend says, "Hey, why don't we go? It's like 30, 45 minutes away. Why don't we go to this event?" I go to this event not wanting to go, and as we're pulling into that event, I had 2 or 3 pastors, God has stricken them from my memory, who, as we pulled in, stood in front of our car and said, "You're not welcome here. Going to kick me out." And I'm like, "Let's go. I don't even want to be here anyway." I had a pastor, Dave Pinson, who just recently passed away, and a mother of one of our friends who we would always get in trouble with at these youth group activities, saw us fighting with these pastors and said, "What's going on?" Stood in the way and said, if they'll sit with us in the back and they promise just to leave afterwards, will you guys just let them stay? And they said, fine. They were super mad about it, right? Like big fight before we go into this church service that I don't want to be in. And it was at that church service. I don't know who was speaking. I don't know what was talked about. I just know that I was there and I just kept asking the same question. What is going on in life? I feel empty. I feel hollow. Nothing's working. And I'm having this conversation, which I think is just one-sided. And I felt like for the first time in my life, I really heard God just speak from me. And this is certainly not in the book. My parents didn't go to church before I was born. I mean, they had moved to an area and had started attending a church. So the first week I was born, they had me in church. Like, I don't know if that's safe to have a baby in the church, but they thought it was important to raise their kids in church because they didn't. And I remember this voice telling me, like, "Stephen, everything that's happened to your life, I'm still here. I've still been there, like from birth before you ever did anything." And all these chaotic things. And I really felt like God was calling to me, like, that I needed to do something about it. And I said, all I have is pain. All I have is heartbreak. All I have is this aggression and frustration and no faith. And I don't read the Bible and I don't really know who God is. I have all the bad things that you could possibly ever want in a person. And I said, how in the world could I ever use that? I mean, I'm smart in math. Let me do math. And I really felt like God saying to me, I want you to be in ministry. Now, again, I don't have any context to what that looks like. And I remember stopping, praying, and that pastor who had seen me had his arm around me, and he whispered in my ear, he says, "What do you hear God saying to you?" And I said, I think God's calling me into ministry. And like, here's me, like zero confidence at all that I'm hearing from God, that like, I get it. Like, you heard from this whisper. I have zero context at all. And I remember his response to me was, "We know. We've always known. We're just waiting for you to hear it." And that to me was I had no context for what that was even like.
Right.
So I get back home. I tell my mom I'm dropping out of school, an engineering school, and I'm going to go to this Christian school so that I can be a pastor. And I have no idea how in the world I'm going to pay for it. I have no idea how I'm going to get there. I have no idea who's going with me. I just know I needed to go.
Yeah.
And that started my trajectory to meet my wife, to change my life around, to really end up in Cleveland, Ohio. Is all because of that moment where I said, "Okay, God, I'm all in."
Yeah.
And for me, I never anticipated any of that in my life. I never thought that's what I would ever do, and yet here I find myself because of that. And for that, to me, all the goodness that I have, any change was because God kept reaching to me, and people in my life kept pouring into me, even though I didn't deserve it. And that to me is just such a beautiful picture of how families and how our connections can work for the best.
Right. I know that there's people out here who are watching, live or watching the recorded session, and they're like, wait a minute, I'm not used to that kind of transparency.
Yeah.
What, with plot twist, your transparency, how do you find, because that is certainly, I think, a gift of yours, is to connect through transparency. It's like, probably not many pastors would share anything like that, or share it, on a live stream and go, yep, I felt like I hit rock bottom. And this is when it happened. What's the importance of that?
Yeah. So I think for me, let's just talk about church people for just a minute. If I'm fake in my relationship with God, then eventually God becomes fake to me. The things that I want him to say or what I think he says, it becomes fake because I'm not true to myself, so that I end up serving and worshiping a fake God. But if I'm true, I'm broken, I'm not whole, I still have things that God needs to work in my life. When I become vulnerable in that way, then I'm allowing God and other people to know the real me. And I think for a long time in my life, it was easy for me to put on a mask, put on a front and say, I know what people like, so I want to be what people like. Super easy, right? If you're a good poker player, right? If you know how to read people, just be whatever they need you to be, right? But if you are vulnerable, then you start the process to allow other people to be vulnerable with you. And for me, that just became a better way to live. Like it was too much. It took too much energy to fake it. It took too much energy to try to get myself up to be the good person, right? Or even as a pastor, right? Like that everything is always good. Everything is always cheerful. Everything is always going my way. Instead, it's just a whole lot easier to be like, hey, today it kind of sucks. It's kind of bad. Not very great. But I think in doing that, it allows people to also be real with you. And then again, relationships can form when you can be real with people. And you get that depth that you don't have at any other time. And so for me, that becomes that kind of like the pillar of what I am. Sure, it causes problems at times, right? Like you're too vulnerable or you're too, this or that. But really and truly, it's because I don't desire to be fake. I struggle, right? I'm real, but at the same time, I want you to also be the same. And so together with our brokenness, we can help each other forward. And I think that that's just a better way for us to live. And hopefully, that becomes a way for us to say, we're still working on something, right? We're not taking the easy way out and say we've already arrived. And we have a lot of people who sit in church who've already arrived and they've done the work, but it's a long time ago. I still want to keep chipping away at that.
Yeah. I know that the folks in our community try to be transparent, right? And we have some courageous people that share their addictions and their difficulties, and that's a connector. That's a connector, certainly. Your shirt says Hope Dealer. Mm-hmm. I use that as kind of a promo, but tell us why Hope Dealer and why that's on a shirt too.
Yeah, it's fun. So this is one of the shirts that we have from our church. On the back of it, it says Hope United. And so, there's some Sundays I'll wear this. It's great. When I go on vacation, I'll wear this shirt down in Florida or something like that. And somebody is, on the street at the beach or something like that. I'm like, oh, dealer. I love that. And it's kind of a play on words, right? That you're selling something else, right? But in our world, I don't want to deal a temporary drug, right? I want to deal out hope. And it also is a reminder for me, kind of like a tattoo, for some people, it's a reminder for me, like, I need to set an example. I need to give hope to people. And so I want to bring joy. I want to bring goodness into the world. I want to do that in my home, right? I want to do that around my church and my community. I want to do that. And so it's just a funny thing. And so there's times where I'll just go out and, I'm playing basketball, but they see my shirt, and that's an important thing for me, just to be able to be mindful of what I can do, but also like, if we as people can bring hope to other people, if we can extend that, branch of peace into people's life, then maybe, just maybe, we can start turning the world around instead of shying away and being, divisive. We're trying to unite some things.
Yeah, yeah. If you haven't been with us from the very beginning or maybe halfway through, Steven signed 2 copies. And if you share this video, we're going to draw, we know it. And to share this video, at the very bottom, there's an arrow. When you press that arrow, you have the opportunity to share it to specific folks. You have the opportunity to share it to your friends group. You have the opportunity to move it into another Facebook group. But when you share, we know it. Next week, we're going to draw 2 winners. And if your name is drawn, we're going to mail a copy of this with hopes that you'll read it, and then pass it on to a loved one. And I think there's, you guys have probably found that even through, a digital format, that Steven has the ability to connect. And I'm anxious to read a copy of this. We have a copy as well. And so Beth will probably, flip through it and read it in the next couple of days. Yeah. I'll walk through it, like a rich piece of dark chocolate. It'll be
That's it.
Small bites at a time. I'll absorb it. I know from, as you shared here, that very often as you speak, right, it's pretty well planned out. Even sometimes you're very specific at writing things out almost word for word, knowing that you were going to deviate from that. Yep. But I also know that, as we're kind of rounding third here, I also know that, I don't know if this was COVID or whether it was just kind of, your congregation, friends that were challenging, but there was something, and I'm going to walk over here, just keep that forward, but there was something that they called, what was it, a 1 minute or a 5 minute sermon? Yeah. And they would just throw you something. Yeah. Right? And now I know that we play basketball. Yeah. But give us some hope using this basketball as a prompt. Yeah. That's a good question. So, what you're talking about there is you're trying to do a sermon in a minute or in 60 seconds, right? And so kind of like a TikTok type of trend in the church is that, whatever object you would have, right, you can make a message about it and kind of see. So thank you for doing this on the spot on a Friday night. So, on the Friday 13th, right? But give us some hope inspired by this basketball. So good. So good. Let me see. So I'm gonna go different. See, it's round and it makes me think of like a globe too. I love basketball, and I could think of lots of sports references, and specifically in the Bible, it can talk about, being able to fight the good fight, and to be able to persevere and to finish the race. And you want to, score the last basket type of thing. But, for whatever reason today, I'm just really drawn toward the globe and the roundness. And I think about our world, and I think about how it is that somehow in our world, our weird round world called Earth, that we have people who are so different from one another. Yeah. Basketball, you can have people who are very different. I'm left-handed, so I shoot a different way. I spin the ball a different way, right? It helps when no one knows that I'm left-handed. Where there's people who play the game a different way, shoot a different way, are different. They're very different. But we can all play the same game together. In our world, people don't have to look like me. They literally don't even have to believe in the same God as me. And I've got some really good friends who believe differently than me. But I believe God has put them in my life for my betterment, and I hope I'm better for them as well. And I think for me, it's just the reminder that God so loved the whole world that whoever would believe in him would not have to die, but could have eternal life. And, that's a pretty known scripture on John 3:16. But I want people to hear today that it's not so much about how you believe, but it's the reminder that before anybody believed, including me, including you, including wonderful Beth there, that for God so loved the world, that he was the first person to put his hand on the ball. And the cool part to me
is that God, as good as he is, LeBron James good, all right, best player ever, MJ good, okay, as good as he is, he gives the ball to us and says, come play. And that to me is such a beautiful thing. And our identity of God is that he doesn't want to control me. He doesn't want to puppet me. And I should give the ball to God as often as I can. But God loves to cheer me on and say, go play. I'm so thankful for that. I'm thankful that I didn't have to do anything special for God to love me, that he could just say, invite me into that. And so for today, for me, that's what I hear. That's what I see is just an invitation that God would love us so much, but an invitation just to play.
Yeah. Trash talker, hope dealer, author, 1 minute sermon writer or giver. We appreciate you sharing your story, your journey with us, being transparent with our community, and we hope that you guys might be one of the winners next week. So you can share away, and we will see you next week.
Thank you.